I won't bore everybody with a long thing, but the building was built in was rebuilt in 1917 after it caught on fire. So I'll be downstairs too. We redone the downstairs as well. So if you guys want to look around downstairs, you can. The back side of the building is original, and the front side was rebuilt in 1917, and then we're remodeling obviously up here and down there. There's 3 apartments up here. They're going to be a 1-bedroom, and the middle one is a 1-bedroom, and the last one will be a 2-bedroom. So I don't know if I missed anything.
No.
We're trying to keep as much original as we can, like the moldings and all that, while bringing it up to code.
When was the last time anyone lived up here?
So the previous owners, I know they stayed here during the fair, and the windows were replaced in 2004. I think Spencer had that was right when I moved to town, but Spencer had some initiative to redo Grand, and so all the windows were replaced in 2004, but I think it was before that. So I don't know the last time for sure.
Yeah, feel free to walk around, check it out, and then you guys can check out
this
downstairs.
didn't burn all the way down?
No, it didn't burn all the way down, but the back side stayed, the front side got rebuilt.
So was it always Spencer Sewing downstairs?
No, it used to be a grocery store downstairs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so downstairs used to be a grocery store. There's a couple of these hanging on the walls, if you guys want to read it all, but yeah, there was a
if you want
grocery
to
store.
take one, you can. Otherwise, but yeah, there's
Yep.
just some history on each of them.
All right.
But yeah, when you're downstairs, you can see the back wall, which still is original.
Yep.
It's got all the bricks exposed downstairs, but you can actually see that part was still original before they rebuilt it.
Yep.
Okay.
So you gotta take the white molding, you gotta clean that up?
Yeah, the plan is to clean it all up. We're not replacing any of that.
All the demo has been done.
Pretty much,
so
yeah,
If
yeah.
it's still here, it's going to be fixed up and refinished.
Yeah, a lot of see, like they replaced the roof, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, but there was significant water damage, and so we've got to take out a bunch of the roof. You'll see that in some of the bedrooms or the middle apartment.
You're just gonna sheet rock and stuff?
Yeah, it'll be quarter sheetrock on the top there.
Strip it and put other sheet rocks on it.
Well, we're actually just going to butt it up, so we'll fix the cracking, but we're not going to take all of the
That's the last
plaster
one.
down. Yeah, oh, man.
Yeah, that one. to tell us a little bit about this building. I'm Marge Carroll of Carroll's Bakery. Now some of you may be surprised to see me outside of this building, but the Hastings building was built in 1919 with the intention of being a bakery, and even though the Carroll family was not involved from the beginning, we are a large part of its history. You see, our dad, John, and brother Josiah, Joe for short, were successful businessmen in St. Paul, and they had been investigating numerous bakery propositions when they saw an ad in the Daily Reporter. They vetted the Peerless Bakery here at this time and heard such grand things about Spencer that it was basically a done deal. The brothers paid $7,500 and took ownership from Vern Corvo in June of 1928. They kept the name of Peerless but added Carroll Brothers to the subtext. Carroll's Bakery moved from this location to where it currently resides in 1940. And that's when the name changed to Carroll's Bakery, and it remains that to this day, even though the Thompsons purchased it in 1991. My brother Joe Jr. and I ran it from 1951 to 1991. And there you have a small little sweet part of Spencer's history.
So you got introduced a little bit to the history of our building. My name is Eric Meter. My wife Kristen and I own this building now, and we own and operate on a daily basis Pressed downstairs. And so kind of to catch you up to where this building has been since the beginning. In 1919, this building was built by Mrs. Hastings, which was actually a really unique point in itself that we found, is to have a female owning land in 1919. But I guess she was, I think, a widow, and so she used some of her estate money and she purchased this building and opened a bakery. I joke with Nancy that maybe next year we need to do a basement tour, because the basement of our building, you can actually see where the ovens were, and there's a huge, I don't know if it's propane or gas tank behind the room that heated the ovens, or that kind of stuff. So that's really cool. This fast forward a few years, probably the most popular bakery in here was the Peerless one that she talked about, and then the Carroll brothers bought that, kept the name until they moved across the street and became Carroll's Bakery. A little bit of history after that is it became a women's store called Elsie's first, I think is what it was, and then a store from Emmitsburg bought Elsie's and made it Ella Hammers. And then since after that, it kind of got converted into a staffing agency for probably the last 4 years before we got it. It was Venture Staffing and Rudy Salem before that. So then when we got it, we completely gutted it and turned it back into a retail space. And we knew when we acquired it that this upstairs, it was a really, I would say, rundown 4-bedroom apartment. And so basically right here was a wall going this way, and right here was a wall going this way. So this section of the apartment was kind of like a, I don't know, a small living room and 2 bedrooms. And that's what this section had. And then the rest of the space is basically a living room, and then that mirrored on the other side, that's a kitchen and 2 bedrooms. And so that is still, we kept that as a 2-bedroom apartment and rented that out. But we knew that we wanted to keep this space and do something with it, and we kind of knew we had to, because when we first bought the building, we knew that we were going to have to get a new roof, just didn't know how fast that was going to go. And 2 weeks later, after acquiring it, had a really big rainstorm, and this skylight decided to leak on us and dropped the ceilings in this space. So we knew we were going to do something, but we had some pleasant surprises. When that ceiling dropped, the ceilings in this space prior to this construction were at 9 feet. We found 3.5 feet above it. And so we were able to open it back up, and to have a second story now that is 12 feet 6 inches tall is pretty remarkable. We are now following the roof line, so it's really kind of fun. Let your eyes get used to it, but now that corner is 12.6, this corner is 11.9 for the runoff of the rain. And now that I've pointed it out, you will see it. But that was a fun little benefit. But Our brand downstairs is a little unique in the sense that 3 of the products that we sell, we also make in-house. And so my wife makes hand-stamped or hand-pressed jewelry. I hand-press t-shirts. And also for you history buffs, we launched last year letterpress greeting cards. We have a 100-year-old letterpress machine. And now, as of yesterday, we have 2. We had a gentleman in Lorenz call me and say, hey, Eric, I have a machine that I do not have room any longer for. If you come get it, it's yours. So we have a nice little new toy to work with, which is really fun. That one was built in 1926. So very excited about that. Encourage you to stop by and visit us there. But with that said, we knew that we needed a space to take photos. And especially with the year that we had last year, we knew a lot of business was moving online. And so we wanted to know how we could equip our community to have that ability as well. So we entered a competition called Open for Business with this state of Iowa, Main Street of Iowa. Ended up winning the competition with the Loft by Prest here. And so we were granted a match grant of $28,000 to put into this space for equipment. And so what's so cool about this space now is that as soon as we get a few bugs figured out, we'll be open to the public and you can rent this space by the hour. And all you need to bring is whatever device for whatever art form you're doing, you use to capture. So if you're taking photos, you just need a camera. Well, that's a really nice camera or your phone. And if you're doing a podcast, we have a full 4-mic in-house podcast setup with 2 remote ports so you can call in and interview 2 people that way. All you need is an SD card. And then you can just hit record. We're going to be changing out the decor basically yearly. So it'll keep updated and that kind of stuff. And just be a really great space, and we're trying to make it as user-friendly as possible. So as of right now, just to show you a demonstration, probably one of the coolest features that we were able to do because of winning the competition is this wall behind me. And this is called a cyclorama wall. And so what's really cool about it is if you add a little light to it, it's almost like the wall or the background behind the person disappears. It's a seamless wall, and so we commissioned a group in Ohio to build us these forms that got shipped to us, and we ended up gluing them in and mudding them in, and so that's a really fun feature. We think we're one of 5 cyc walls in the state of Iowa right now, and eventually we'll be one of 4 in the state of Iowa that controls their cyc wall colors by light. And I want to give you a demonstration of that. If you guys look kind of around the room here, you're going to see some little lights lighting up, some colored lights. These are a mini version of what eventually will be mounted on the ceiling here. We ordered the lights that go up here back in December, and they have yet to ship, which has been part of our delay. But what's really cool about these lights is that, say I really, really like this color, I can snap a photo with it and they change. So really simply, we can set things up, and again, we're going to have powerful enough lights that they'll be able to wash the wall back here and change the color just through lighting, which is really, really, really exciting. My wife and I joke, so I've had some technical training in film and photography and that kind of stuff. And so I geek out about this all the time. And my wife does not. She shoots, I would say 90% of the stuff that you see on our website is shot on her iPhone. And so we wanted this space to be something that accommodates for both. Someone that is like me that can geek out with all the technology, but something that works for someone like her. And so we've tried to add some really fun amenities in here. There's a dressing room. We built that door together. Kind of the inspiration, as you guys are leaving, for our logo, the Loft by Prest, really came from the skylight, the geometric shapes and that kind of stuff. So we wanted to incorporate that into the door a little bit as well. We worked with Andy Manigan, who used to live here, and is a great designer, and he just loves the history of Spencer. So he designed that for us, which was just an absolute blast. What questions do you have for me?
Just neat, very neat.
Yeah. Very neat.
Awesome, this is amazing.
It's really fun to bring a little bit of life back into these downtown upstairs. This building in particular, at least from the assessor's side of things, is really confusing on what actually took place up here. It's almost like they got the neighboring buildings and our building confused for a while and joined them, which was kind of odd. But through what I'm going to call Spencer City folklore, we have heard that the upstairs of this space were originally a doctor's office. And that was really common, I think, back when these buildings were built, that you'd have retail on the first floor and then the offices above, different sort of offices. And I know there's a lot of buildings that kind of follow that example. So
how many upstairs buildings have stone stairs?
Right, yes. The marble stairs is really cool, and what's really unique about this building is, so if I have my history correct, it's basically the hen house building where the fire started, and the wind was blowing everything that way. So this was saved from the fire, but even if it hadn't been, it wouldn't have burned. We have 13-inch concrete floors in between both layers. And our walls are 2 layers of 8-inch block. So this is a concrete, the only wood in the entire space is the rafters on the ceiling. Otherwise there is nothing. And so that's also why probably not much has happened up here, because from an electrical and plumbing, as we're starting to find, it's difficult to drill through 13 inches of concrete. It's a tank of a building and really, really strong. But for us, it's been such a blessing because the new machine that we just got is 1,200 pounds. And so to have a floor that can support that downtown is really nice. And so those 100-year-old letter presses weigh a ton, literally.
In 1872, the Oddfellows held their first meeting in Spencer, and they bounced around from different locations. And in 1895, they came to this building that was owned by John Painter, and they reached an agreement that if the Oddfellows constructed the upper floor and maintained the roof, then they could use this as their meeting place. So every Wednesday night they met here upstairs. There used to be a stairway when you went in the front door here that went upstairs to the second story. Now today we're going to have to go around to the back and climb up the not so fun stairs. But the Oddfellows started in Spencer about the same time as the Masons did, and they had similar attire. This was similar to what the Oddfellows would wear. And back when they originated in England, a lot of folks said, "That fellow's odd," or "Look at that odd fellow." That's kind of one of the myths of how the name came about with the organization. We did find an old picture upstairs that kind of speaks of what the Oddfellows were. Educate the orphans, relieve the distressed, visit the sick, and bury the dead. So they always took care of everyone in the community, kind of in a private way. But they always made sure that the community came first, and it was a big part of their organization. No records of the Spencer chapter. They lost all of the Spencer chapter information in a fire at some point, so they have very little information. A lot of the stuff I got was going through the microfiche at the library and digging through newspapers and just trying to find out whatever I could about it. So yeah. And I think it was in the early 70s when they stopped meeting up here.
Wow. I know in the 50s, the 1950s, it's neat up here.
Okay.
Whether
it was 1921 when they finally had paid their debt off. So it took them 26 years to pay the debt off for their part of the building. And they would have long processions, long funeral processions when one of their own passed away, and they would come from all over the state and all over the country for funerals for one of their Oddfellows.
Are they still going? Did you say that?
There are chapters in just about every state still.
Oh,
Well, welcome everybody. This
level of the building is the Oddfellow Lodge of Spencer. It was active from, the early 1900s until, well, maybe 1920s, until about 1970s. And the reason it went away is the reason that a lot of the upper floors in the downtown are vacant. SMU provided steam heat for the downtown as it was a byproduct of their electrical generation. And when they stopped doing that, the buildings downtown that were using it had to find another source of heat. And a lot of them decided just to do the main floor and not, well, someday we'll do the upper floor. And a lot of times it didn't happen. Oddfellows is an organization that started in England way back in the 1700s, and it came to the U.S. in the early 1800s, and it came to this part of the country sometime later. It's an organization based on doing good in the world, and it's based on a lot of, you might say, Christian principles, but biblical references. It's the organization from the very start. They admitted women and men, which wasn't the case of all of those types. But the women were referred to as Rebeccas. And Rebecca is based on the biblical Rebecca, who was the wife of Isaac and had the sons Jacob and Esau. And if you want a very interesting and intriguing story, go to the book Genesis, about chapter 24. That's another story in and of itself. But anyway, the lodges of the Oddfellows, they were based on friendship, love, and doing good for others. There's one reference to feeding the hungry, healing the sick, and burying the dead. And it was just an organization doing good in the world, and this was their meeting place. The symbols on the wall are symbols of various degrees of membership in the Oddfellows. I'm not sure what they mean, but I suppose if we did extensive research, we could discover. Like many organizations, there's different degrees of membership. You're fine. This beautiful building that's been sitting vacant for many, many years, full kitchen over there, private rooms up there, and it was built originally in 1891 just as a single-level, single-story building. And sometime later, it had two storefronts, lots of different things over the years, clothing, bakery, all sorts of things. And the Oddfellows actually built this second level and owned it. And I suppose until the time that the Browns family through company bought it outright, and it's just been sitting here. It has potential if you have the funds to do it. It takes a lot because everything up there, all you have is a shell. You don't have plumbing, you don't have, well you do, but it doesn't work. Electrical, plumbing, heating, air conditioning, all of that would have to be replaced. So it's expensive, and to get the value back through rental is sometimes questionable. So that's why a lot of these upper floors are still vacant. Anyway, look around. We understand that all the records of the local lodge were on fire sometime.
Would that have been
This building did not burn.
so that
Fire it was that did it. Anyway.
Hi everyone, my name's Wyman Steffen. My friends and wife call me Wymie. I actually grew up here in Spencer, watched the Spencer Fire from the high school right around the corner. I started Steffen Furniture actually across the street where my good friends Nelson's Jewelry have their store now, before moving over to where the Beehive is currently at 406. I did that in 1952. 1965 we moved down to 420 Grand Avenue, where we built out the Steffen Furniture store from there. When you came into Steffen Furniture, you were always greeted with a smile, superior service, and superior home furnishings to help make your house a home. Another thing you always got when you stopped by my office was a piece of candy from my drawer, so make sure when you go upstairs to grab a piece on your way up. It makes me so happy to see all of you here enjoying Main Street, supporting Main Street, as myself and my son Tim were original board members of Spencer Main Street. So without any further ado, you can head on upstairs. I have some more friends that'd like to share a little more about the building. Thank you.
This was known back in the day as 701 Grand Avenue. Our address scheme has changed a bit since then. For today, my name is Elizabeth Flint. You can call me Betty because everybody called me Betty. I was married to the third child and the oldest son of William Flint Sr. and his wife Emma, who came here in 1881 to start a clothing store, which was a men's clothing store, men and boys. My father-in-law started business with a gentleman by the name of Strauss from Albert Lea, Minnesota, because that's where I grew up, or that's where he grew up, rather. He moved from Winona, his birthplace, to Albert Lea and worked with a gentleman by the name of Strauss, who was in clothing as well. Somewhere along the line, discussion led to a partnership that brought my father-in-law here to Spencer in 1881. He opened in partnership Flint Strauss, strictly men's clothing and young boys. And it was located kitty corner across the street where the building that's labeled Farmers Bank is currently located. That was built in 16, and my father-in-law got here in 1881. By 1887, he was at this location in the previous pre-fire building as Flint and Company. Mr. Strauss had gone on, they were still good friends, and they were part of a buying association, and my father-in-law used that as a template to get other people started in business and to grow the buying group. Hartley, Sibley, Ocheyedan, Rock Rapids, and there were similar things going on in Minnesota. And what that meant was Mr. Strauss and his group and Mr. Flint and his group could get together with manufacturers from New York and St. Louis and power buy. They could get better prices and better goods, and that's what he used in his advertising, which has a side story also. This was a typical Flint and Company ad, very low key. Everybody else at the same time was putting pictures of the dresses and the shoes and the prices and everything else, and he did what's called institutional advertising. The preeminent position established and maintained by the William Flint Company is due to the qualities of persistence and careful investigation associated with the selection of quality merchandise. That's all he wrote. And this was a typical size ad. Everybody else was doing half page, quarter page. And I think his humble researcher for this project has a theory about that. There are 3 Clay County history books. 1889, which is the smaller book open there, the 1984 book, which is available at the Heritage Center, I believe, still, and there was one in between, 1889. Well, the guy that did the 1889 was involved in the newspaper business. And if this was the typical ad, He wasn't spending a whole lot, Mr. Flint wasn't. He's in the first one and the third one, and he doesn't exist in the second one. It's just a theory. It's kind of how things work, but just a theory. In 1887, he and Emma, his wife, were at this location. As the boys were becoming of age, they too worked in the store. But my husband, William Jr., was an employee of Farmers Bank, which my father-in-law started. He was the original president of Farmers Bank. Again, the more people you have in your community, the more people that are going to buy clothes. You know, it's just very simple. It's the train, the cause and effect. The line was quality menswear and quality boys wear, and he had competition, but the reputation was good, and he stuck to his business plan, and that's what he did. He was also not only Farmers Bank, but he was with a group called the Mead Group, which was pre-crash. Many of the little towns surrounding here, he was in charge of that. He had his fingers in many businesses. In his later years, he developed, it wasn't that late, he was in his late 50s. He developed something that was probably respiratory, but it's unspoken in the various accounts. He would go to Hot Springs, Arkansas, and come back feeling much better. It was probably the present day go to Arizona or go to Florida routine, but it was Hot Springs, Arkansas. He had just come back not too long ahead of that in the spring of 29. And this was on the heels of a fire at this building as well that had nothing to do with the 31 fire. It was ahead of that. Accidental, cause unknown. The building was damaged. The merchandise that had just arrived for the season was pretty much destroyed. He had fixed that up. Everything was percolating again, ready to go into the summer months, the late spring. And with no warning to his family, of a Thursday, he wrote a note very hurriedly with a pencil on stationery from the business and put it on the table. His wife had come up to take a nap over the lunch hour, and when she awakened around 2 o'clock, she found his note. And the note was an apology for not being able to take the bad things that had happened. I'm paraphrasing. William Sr. had gone downstairs. He had wet a cloth, fabric of some sort, laid down on the ground, put the cloth over him, and used a .45 caliber pistol on his heart. Committed suicide. The wife woke up about 2 o'clock, saw the note, believed it, called the boys from across the street to come over here and join her to find what they knew was inevitable. My husband took over immediately. John had a role in the business, the clothing business, throughout the remainder of the time that it ran. 1931 was not a good year either. This block was absolutely leveled by the fire that we all talk about. There's pre and post pictures here if you wish to take a look. John and William Jr. were very deliberate in making sure that their rebuild was complementary to, consistent with, the remainder of the block. There were many joint meetings with the architects that were involved in this building as well as theirs. They wanted the look to be the way they wanted it. They wanted quality, they wanted it artistic, and as a result we've got the Art Deco and with a touch of mission that's very iconic to Spencer. I never got over my socialite sorority days at Drake University, which is the reason I came to Spencer. I was an English teacher at the high school, and I also taught Latin, and I crossed paths with William, and as they say, the rest is history. We had a daughter, Gretchen, who I understand just passed away within the last couple of years. I led a good life. 1903 was my birth date in Winterset, actually Indianola, and then my family moved to Winterset. I was married in a church of my aunt. I can't remember why. She had a reason. Anyway, it was a large gathering in Des Moines, and then we came up here. William went to ISU. He was an Iowa State Cyclone. And so the two of us had lots of friends from back there and here, and we enjoyed the lake as well. John built cabins on Westlake that we enjoyed. This was our home early on in our wedding, but we ultimately built a very nice house at 901 Grand. Does that ring a bell, present day? You are Spencer? It's the present site of Hope Reformed Church.
Oh, wow.
I was absolutely unable to find a picture of it, but the society notations spoke highly of 901 Grand, so I have to be proud. I lived to 1998, and I finished my days at Hilltop Care Center. My husband passed before that. This business closed in the early 60s, 1962, and you can still see underneath the wonderful new appointments of the new Grand bridal shop. You can still see the sign for Flint & Company that's mosaic underneath. Kind of peek under there while you're leaving. It's iconic. Thankfully, it's not covered over permanently. It's still there. The Flint family was players in the business community, integrity, and they didn't advertise a lot, but they pulled it off in spite of it. So, these are the best pictures I could find. There aren't not. They weren't into proclaiming that much, but their reputation kind of preceded them, and they were, my father-in-law particularly, and my husband, I'm pleased to say, continued the tradition of good business, fair prices in Spencer, Iowa. This, just to speak about this just a tad, what you're seeing on the woodwork, that piece that's behind you, that is original to the 1931 rebuild. There is another unit open down the corridor that is it's a studio unit. It has a Murphy bed. This probably had a Murphy bed, not that, I think in that room, or it was not part of it very long. The other one has a Murphy bed. Flip it down, flip it back up. The good old days. So.
I'll start because I'll just tell you what I know about the little bit of knowledge that I have about the building is that, you know, my earliest information is that back in the late 1800s, it was actually, and this is interesting to me because I'm a lawyer, but it was part of like the Spencer scandal of a divorce, and where the woman was asking for the divorce, and back then, you know, you had to have a good reason, and so all of the divorce proceedings are in our abstract. So that's kind of interesting. I know that, I think she ended up with the building. Then it was, at some point in time, the telephone company was in here. And then it jumps to, because I didn't have time to really study the abstract, Modern Business. You guys probably remember Modern Business. They had it in the 80s, and they actually built an addition on the back of it, of the original building. And after Modern Business, it was Stevens Jewelry to Carlson Properties, and then we purchased it from Carlson Properties, which are now around the corner in a building over there by the. So we purchased it when Joe said, I graduated from law school, and he's like, you know, you really need a building downtown. I said, no, I really don't need a building downtown. It's just one more thing to worry about. No, you need a building. And so he brought me here, and he said, you know, I'd really like for you to look at this.
And he enticed me because it has a really cool upstairs loft area. So he was like, you knew I was going to see that. I go, oh, okay, maybe we could do this. And so we purchased the building and we got started. But everything really had to be gutted. This whole first floor was gutted. The basement was all gutted for the most part, and even upstairs was. I mean, when I say like all of the sheetrock came off, like everything came off, and everything got spray foamed on the north side of the building, and so yeah, I think that's all I really know about the building itself. Do you want to talk about the remodel?
Yeah, so this had an angled front. We straightened it out, and then we did a nice signboard up above. Something that different, something more to look kind of more historic, you know, something looked old-fashioned. That actually was here. We redid it though. It was a little different, but the stone was on it. A few of these lights were here, but we painted the ceilings and added the same lights down the hallway, all the offices. We exposed the brick. We added this little wet bar in for taking care of clients. So,
what was the safe for?
Okay, now that's a whole different story. So
I just noticed that.
That really isn't what that is.
Oh, really?
What that is that used to be cross between modern business. They had both sides. So, and when we expose the brick, it's really hard to match this brick because this is soft Chicago brick. It's not made to be exposed. And so when we exposed it, we were debating whether to fill it in or not. Then we had the old steam pipe chase. So we came up with the idea to put some false beams in front of the steam pipe chase. And then I got that door out of the old laundry building that is where Speed Printers and the Catholic Charities and Techno is.
Okay.
Down in the basement they had a fur room storage. And Aaron owns the sewing machine place. You guys toured that place already. So
yeah.
You see my handiwork, it's a disaster. It'll be like this though when we're done. Yeah. So I conned him into giving me that door and put it in Ann's office just as a conversation piece. You guys can, they put stuff in it all the time.
Yeah,
so.
it was open. Like we could go into the brewery and we really struggled with saying we should probably brick it in for the noise, but we were tempted to be able to walk in there.
You could open it and go in there.
Oh wow.
But the fire marshal did say you probably should brick it up, so we helped them. I did help them with their over there too, so they bricked it in. We went and found to actually brick and bricked it in. It looks good on their side too.
Yeah, we had to run like real quick up to Lake Park to grab, like we saw it come up on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a unique thing to find, right? And I was like, I showed them like, look, it's like our brick. So he like grabbed our boys and they like sped up to Lake Park and all piled it in the back of the truck. And I think by the end of that day, Nick from the brewery had it all bricked in.
Oh wow!
Yeah, all in one day. It was fun, but yeah. And we do have some visitors that we put in there, so when you walk past the door, just open and take a peek. Trying to, you know.
So, but then we framed in the offices and the conference room, and we redid the upstairs. But we can start moving back that way. Was used to be the Modern Business. They had a sales and a couple offices up here, for those that you remember that. When we bought it, there was no windows here, and that was just windows there. And we cut that down, put in the glass, put on that porch, and put windows back in the openings. There is 2 apartments in the front that have windows too on this side, but we're not back far enough to see those. Then Ann has her office there. So this is how I convinced her to buy the building. I said, you'll have your own personal office. Right. So, but and we painted the ceiling, just to do something different. So it just kind of to keep just everything the same color. The design was pretty tough. We went round and round on several things.
On what?
Had to listen to her a couple times. I disagreed with colors, but it came out nice.
Yes, it does.
But yeah, I think you really like it, don't you?
Yeah, I really like it. Yeah. Yeah.
And then-
And I think my clients really like it. That's the important. is
So
that-
you do bring clients up here? so
Yes, yeah. I think that this is just a more intimate setting, you know, and when I meet with clients, it's, you know, everybody always feels like under time pressure, right? To like, so if I can get them to relax a little bit and then they share just like that one little bit extra thing and it changes like the whole case. And I'm like, that's what I wanted to know. That's what I wanted to know. Because they don't know what's important for me, you know, asking lots of questions. And so this is a really nice space to do that, to really help them relax and talk about whatever their legal matter is. So yeah, they're enjoying it, for sure.